Maybe take care of him too. We're at 5:01.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Good evening and welcome to the City Council special meeting of Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. Two items on the agenda. The first of these is continued discussion regarding the operation of the emergency shelter. Mr. Knighton or Miss? Okay. Anthony Puritan.
All right. So, just a reminder where we kind of left things 2 weeks ago. Council considered a resolution to terminate the food and shelter contract to operate the emergency shelter. Council had several actions that it took during that meeting. The first one was to change notice to 60 days instead of 30 days. That amendment to the resolution did pass. There was another amendment that was proposed to ensure the shelter did not experience any lapse in operation. That one was tabled, and then we got to the, it wasn't necessarily amendment, but there was a motion to continue the discussion till today to get more information on the potential start date for an alternative contractor that we've been into talks with. So with that in mind, I'll kind of let you guys have a current status of that. The board for the other operator that we've been talking to, they met and they did give us the green light to negotiate a contract, and we're doing so with their staff. We're still in early talks. Nothing to really report on yet. We are awaiting more specific feedback on the contract terms. We kind of gave them a draft contract of what we had sort of gotten to the point with food and shelter, and they had some pretty favorable feedback for us on that initially. So we're just kind of waiting for the more specific line by line feedback. We're still working, we really want to, and they're in agreement with us too, we want to work quickly to reach that final agreement so that we can get it back to you guys. We just don't know exactly when that will happen. So we're hoping it will be sometime next month, either the first or the second meeting. Hopefully not have to go back into December, but that is also a possibility. We were also, in the meantime, also asked to find alternative resources for the people at the shelter in the interim if the shelter closes. I do want to give a little bit, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, just a little bit of what we found. We did talk with, we sat down with Heidi, who is with, Thunderbird Clubhouse, who is the collaborative applicant for the COC, just to kind of get a status of things. Right now, Norman Housing Authority, for example, they're in shortfall, which essentially means that they can't issue any new vouchers because they're kind of at their limit with their current funding. So what that means is, if you're on the wait list for a housing voucher, there's not great opportunity for, or it's not clear when you're going to be able to get a housing voucher. So some of that information on that last new voucher, right, which was not a transfer with a current voucher. So someone who got, the last person who got a new voucher, that was given in June 2024. So no new vouchers have been issued since then, right? And the person who did get it in June 2024, that would have been someone who had submitted an application in September of 23. And then the wait list for the vouchers, right now it's about just over 1,000 people. And that's about a 15 to 18 month wait. But again, we don't really know for sure.
Does that encapsulate all categories of individuals? I mean, is that our elderly, disabled, veterans, or is that just kind of everybody, the average random, if I were to apply right now?
Yes, that is they are not issuing any new vouchers. That includes mainstream, which for people that are disabled, they may have one VASH. Like if they were going to have somebody who, for instance, passed away and they had a voucher come open, it would probably go to somebody on VASH simply because they have the most resources.
Right.
But yes, there are no new vouchers being issued for anyone.
Okay, perfect.
And so, and the other funding sources, right, that could potentially be used, those are either tied up or, going to a different type of, just different type of use or, and I think we have three entities in Norman who got ESG funding, for example.
Yes.
And so that in and of
ESG is what?
emergency service grant. Right.
Solutions.
Or solutions grant, sorry. So it just, there's not enough, funding currently or even units available in order to realistically find a permanent solution for the people staying at the shelter in the event that the shelter shut down. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that.
Yes, sir.
So, what kind of impact would it have on the Norman Housing Authority, for example, if the amount of money that we're allocating towards operating the shelter, if we said we're gonna take that amount and give it to the Housing Authority so they can restart the vouchers, do we know what kind of impact that would have? If it would have, would they still not be able to get people housed because of the shortage of places for them to actually do it, or,
I think that's, a complicated question. I think that's the big bottleneck that we would also be experiencing is, I think the wait list is, it's a twofer right now. It's, there is the funding issue because of the shortfall status. There's also the lack of available units, like you said. So I don't know if that would help things. If it did, it definitely wouldn't free up 53 units as of a certain date. It wouldn't necessarily work like that. No, not what I would imagine.
No, and I don't know from a HUD standpoint if they can even come out of shortfall with that amount of money. I don't think HUD would allow them to come out of shortfall because it wouldn't be enough to get them into their next fiscal cycle. And HUD won't allow them, they have to be able to meet not only this month's rent, but rent for 36, 48, however many months that person uses that voucher. So that's why HUD puts people in shortfall because they only have, I think they do 1,800 vouchers right now among all of them on a monthly basis. So they're in shortfall because they believe they have enough to get to their next fiscal year. So that's what shortfall is. With the raise and increase in rent amounts, they can't do new vouchers because they're busy funding the ones that are already in place. So shortfall ends when HUD says in this current fiscal year or next fiscal year, you'll have enough to do all the vouchers plus some.
And that's a national issue. Like Oklahoma City's in
Yeah.
shortfall, a lot of places right now.
That's still one of the best ideas I've heard, though, actually utilizing this money to actually get people affordable housing. Because there are 52 people in the shelter. We spend $52,000 a month on the shelter. That's $52,000 deposits. And we're not trying to get everybody a $1,000 deposit unit. Now, and you're right, I went to Vicksburg today to try to get somebody into an apartment. And they said it's a 2-year wait list. But this individual was also a senior citizen. So I went right down the road to Boscage, whatever it is, which is a senior community. He will be in there before the end of the month. So there are units, there are things available if we actually go and look for them and we apply what we have to those type of things. So great idea, Stephen. Thank you.
All right, so a recommendation at this point, and I think this was based mostly on council's feedback that we got during the October 8th meeting. We would recommend postponing the cancellation until the contract and start date of the new operator can be finalized. It was pretty clear that council did not want any lapse in operation, so in order to achieve that, I don't necessarily think it would be a great idea to say 60 days and then hope for the best in terms of getting that new contractor on board. If the intent is to continue operations, then it would be better to handle it all at the same time in terms of starting with the new contract for the new contractor and issuing either a notice probably within 30 days because we already have that transition period in place with food and shelter. So we could, like I said, terminate within 30 days, or we can come with an agreement with food and shelter to terminate sooner if that's what both parties can agree to. So it kind of depends on what the new start date of that contractor looks like. We're just not to that point yet in those discussions. But like,
I was under the impression that Food and Shelter wanted to quit now.
they have said that they would be willing to operate until the end of the winter season, March 2025, or until a new operator can be found. But they don't necessarily want to cancel without either getting past the winter month or until a new contractor can be found. And so those items that we will likely include in that new item or the set of items with the new operator would be a contract with them, cancellation of a food and shelter contract, or, an agreement canceling the contract upon agreement by both parties. And then also budget appropriation for funding for that new contract through the term, so. And I think that's kind of where we're at. We were hoping to have a little bit more specifics on the new contractor and where that contract is. It's just a little too soon, but I think we're in a really good spot moving forward to finalize that contract once we are able to actually sit down and really get into the substantive discussions with them, so.
I was gonna ask, I got a little bit of feedback that there would be potential for employees at the current shelter to transition if they wanted to be employed by the new contractor. Have you heard anything else around that, or?
We haven't, and we haven't gotten to that granular level yet, but that is something that is on our agenda and topics to discuss with them when we actually get to sit down and go over the specifics of everything.
It seemed like they weren't oppositional to hiring on, I seem
I
to
didn't
recall
get-
that it was like
Yeah.
kind of gonna be an issue to find employees.
Potentially. We did not get negative feedback when they talked to them originally. And so that was kind of a very early conversation that we had with them when we approached them. So I think that they would be, interested in that for sure.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments?
Oh, I still have
Oh, I'm
a
sorry.
couple. In oversight, we talked about some things food and shelter might do while they're still operating. Has there been any development on that?
Could you remind me specifically?
One was talking about the potential for bonding, and the other was related to how CLEAT is scheduled, since they said they had 2 employees.
I don't know if that has been talked about. I don't believe so, but we can engage with Food and Shelter to see if we can get that.
I sent an email, I don't know, I know Rick was on it, but I can forward it if I didn't, but it
I can
also
connect it.
included April.
Gotcha.
And council, what may be able to take place much sooner than later as part of the remodel to the courthouse, and all the new equipment that went in, we have, and I don't know what vintage, the walk-through metal detector that was originally purchased for the courts, it's sitting in storage. It's a thing we think that would be of value to the new contractor. I think staff could set it up. I don't think we have to hire a contractor to get that kind of hardware installed. I think we could figure that part out and actually get it up and running in relatively short order. So we'll take this opportunity to ask Mr. Purinton to just let the folks know over at the shelter. We've got some free hardware. It's sitting in the storage room. It's not doing anybody any good now and could do us lots of good going forward.
And I'm sure we have, I don't know if we have wands or not that are available, but I think those would be pretty simple to acquire, so. We could even supply those if necessary in order to get that accomplished, so.
Okay, appreciate it.
You said at the courthouse, you mean?
Run this courthouse. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I was wondering how are you gonna steal stuff from them?
Shh, don't tell them.
Yeah. Any further questions? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 2. Consideration of adjourning into executive session is authorized by Oklahoma statutes under Title 25, Section 307B4, to discuss pending litigation in the case of UTC versus City of Norman et al. Case number CJ 2024-1405 JB. Need a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
Thank you.